that you've called this markup, and I'm glad that we're advancing the three good pieces of legislation today. I'll start with the bill I authored, the Caesar Serious Civilian Protection Act. I want to thank Chairman Royce for joining me as the lead Republican co-sponsor of this bill, and I think it's fair to say that this legislation would not have moved so fast if it wasn't for Chairman Royce. When Caesar visited our committee nearly 3 years ago, he showed us the horror of Assad's war against the Syrian people. No one sitting in this room who saw that could ever forget those images. We know in the years since that nothing has gotten better in Syria. As we heard again and again during our hearing last week, the United States needs a clear, coherent strategy to address the 6-year-old crisis raging in Syria. We need to push for a political solution that ends the Assad regime's campaign of carnage, removes Assad from power, and helps the Syrian people rebuild and chart the course for the future of their country. That's no small task, especially after so much time, after so much senseless death. Each time we've seen the Assad regime on the ropes, they get another lifeline, often from their most devoted enablers, Russia and Iran. And of course, Hezbollah goes along with Iran. So part of dialing up the pressure on Assad, part of pushing for that solution, means cutting off those lifelines. And that's what my legislation aims to do. This sanctions bill would crack down on anybody who does business with the Assad regime. We want to go after the money flowing to Assad. We want to go after the actual hardware that's driving his ability to murder the Syrian people, from the airplanes and weapons that spell doom for innocent civilians to the oil and spare parts that keep that machinery running. Sanctions worked with Iran, and they will work with Syria. If you're taking the side of the butcher in Damascus over the Syrian people, you're going to get caught up in these sanctions. This means Iran. This means Russia. The blood of the Syrian people is on their hands as well. And as we're cracking down on those responsible for this war, we'll also be taking names. Down the road, those guilty of war crimes must face the consequences. This bill would require reporting on human rights violators and support evidence gathering to aid eventual prosecutions for war crimes and crimes against humanity. Now, this measure includes some flexibility. After all, if conditions change and negotiations were in sight, the ability to suspend sanctions could be a useful initiative if it led to a cessation of violence against civilians. This bill also takes a few specific steps to aid and protect civilians right now and in the future, such as ratcheting up oversight of assistance flowing to Syria and evaluating the feasibility of a no-fly zone, which, frankly, I think we should have put into effect years ago. Last year, this committee marked up this bill, and it passed unanimously in the House. I again ask for the support of all members, and I hope this time we can get it across the finish line and that the other body will move it as well. I also want to quickly mention the other two bills we're marking up today, both of which deal with the commitment of the United States to confront the horror of modern-day slavery, what we call trafficking in persons. The Trafficking Victims Prevention and Protection Reauthorization Act is the latest update to the Trafficking Victims Protection Act, which President Clinton signed in the year 2000. Each reauthorization has built on the success of that first law, making protection for survivors more effective, improving the way we prevent this crime, and ensuring that we're prosecuting those responsible. The State Department's Trafficking in Persons report is the global gold standard for assessing how well governments, including our own, are meeting their responsibility to fight this crime. This bill refines the tier-ranking system in the annual report, ensuring that Congress has a better idea of why the State Department decides to move a particular country up or down in the rankings. I'm glad to support this measure, and I thank Chairman Chris Smith for all his hard work. And I want to say something about Chris Smith. I think he's the only one on this committee that's actually been on this committee longer than me. And from the moment I got to the committee, he has been a tireless fighter for all the rights, including trafficking, human trafficking, for so many years. He's really been the leader, and he's persistent, and he perseveres through different administrations, thick and thin, Republican and Democratic. So Chris, I want to just single you out because you have just been exemplary, and I know from our talks how what deep feelings you hold for this. So I just want to publicly thank you for your good work through the years. You can applaud. I'm also glad to support legislation authored by Chairman Royce along with Representative Frankel, which would improve efforts to bring traffickers to justice. The Targeted Rewards for the Global Eradication of Human Trafficking, or TARGET Act, would expand the Rewards for Justice program to include human trafficking. This program was created to allow the U.S. government to pay for information leading to an arrest or conviction in an international terrorism case. Congress has since expanded it to include other crimes, and with this bill, human trafficking would be added to the list. It's a good common sense bill, and I'm grateful to the Chairman for bringing it forward, and I thank Ms. Frankel as well. So again, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank all our members for their hard work, and I yield back.
Thanks, Mr. Engel. Do any other members seek recognition?